And I just started writing, and I kept writing, and I kept writing. And at like 5 in the morning, I'd get more ideas and more ideas. David, Duchovny is in the movie with me too, and he came on board. We started.
The 2025 Oscars, millions watching worldwide, and then she appeared. Meg Ryan stepped onto that stage beside Billy Crystal, and the internet broke in real time. Not with celebration, not with nostalgia, with confusion, with shock, with that collective gasp that happens when something feels fundamentally wrong, but you can't quite process why. The cameras zoomed in, Twitter fingers started flying, the world stopped. Within seconds, the reaction erupted across every platform. Side-by-side photos flooded Instagram. Meg from When Harry Met Sally, next to Meg from That Night. The contrast was jarring, unsettling, impossible to ignore. Plastic surgeons who'd never met her posted thread after thread diagnosing procedures they assumed she'd had. Tabloids scrambled to get statements. The morning shows booked panels of experts. Everyone had an opinion about what happened to her face. But here's what nobody was asking in that moment. Why? Because this wasn't sudden. This wasn't an overnight transformation or a shocking reveal that came out of nowhere. This was the culmination of something that had been building for decades. A pressure cooker that had been heating since she first smiled on camera at 19 years old. The weight of expectations, the impossible standards, the relentless scrutiny, all of it had been compounding for 30 years. What really happened to Meg Ryan isn't a story about Botox or fillers or celebrity vanity. It's a story about what Hollywood does to women, about what fame costs when you're sold as perfection, about heartbreak, betrayal, abandonment, reinvention, and the impossible choice between staying young or becoming invisible. It's about an industry that chews up its brightest stars and spits them out unrecognizable. To understand the face that stunned the world at the 2025 Oscars, you have to go back, way back, to a teenage girl in Connecticut whose mother drove away one afternoon and never came back, to the wounds that shaped every decision she'd ever make. Fairfield, Connecticut, the 1970s. A childhood that looked perfectly normal from the outside. Meg's father, Harry Hyra, was an intellectual, a high school math teacher with a precise, orderly mind who believed in structure and discipline. Her mother, Susan, carried the weight of artistic dreams that never fully materialized, a woman who'd wanted more from life than suburban motherhood could offer. The household ran on routine, discipline, Catholic faith, and unspoken expectations. Everything had its place. Everyone had their role. The surface was calm. Beneath it, tension simmered. Then Meg turned 15, and her mother left. Not dramatically, not with screaming matches or ultimatums or explanations that made sense, just left, packed her things, got in the car, and drove away from the marriage, from the 4 children, from the life she'd built over 2 decades. The kind of abandonment that's quiet, but total. The kind that leaves no room for closure, no answers, just an empty space where a person used to be. Picture that moment, Meg standing at the window watching the car disappear down the street, the silence that followed, thick and suffocating, the way her father's face changed as he realized what this meant, the sudden, crushing responsibility that settled over the house like a heavy blanket nobody could escape from. Overnight, Meg became a co-parent to her younger siblings. She cooked meals, she cleaned the house, she held things together emotionally while her father scrambled to manage a full-time job and 4 kids alone. Her emotional childhood ended that day in the most brutal way possible. She grew up instantly, learning lessons about abandonment that would haunt her for decades. This wasn't just trauma, it was a blueprint for everything that followed. It taught her that love disappears, that people leave without warning, that she needed to be perfect to be worthy of staying. High school became Meg's escape route and her salvation. She threw herself completely into achievement. Academic awards, student government positions, drama club leading roles, journalism assignments. She learned that performance earned approval, that being exceptional kept you safe from abandonment. If she could just be good enough, smart enough, accomplished enough, maybe people wouldn't leave her the way her mother had. Maybe she could earn permanence through perfection. Then came journalism school at NYU and the completely unexpected Burger King commercials. Those ads weren't glamorous. They were quick cash, something to cover expensive textbooks and Manhattan rent. 30-second spots selling hamburgers to middle America. But they taught her invaluable skills: precision under pressure, charm on command, how to sell something with just a smile, and 10 seconds of screen time. Skills that would define her entire career, though she had no way of knowing it at the time. Then the soap opera As the World Turns called with an offer. It was an impossible choice. Finish college and follow the safe, predictable path her father wanted, or drop out for a daytime television role that paid real money and offered creative opportunity. Stability versus risk. Security versus the unknown. The sensible decision versus the dream. Meg chose independence. She chose risk. She chose to walk away from safety toward something uncertain and thrilling and completely her own. That pattern of choosing the difficult path would repeat throughout her entire life, and she changed her name. Margaret Mary Emily Ann Hyra became Meg Ryan, adopting her grandmother's maiden name. This wasn't vanity or pretension. It was survival. Hollywood demanded assimilation, demanded you fit their narrow mold, demanded you become whoever they needed you to be to sell tickets. The industry started erasing her real identity before she'd even arrived. The early years in Hollywood were absolutely brutal. Rich and famous in 1981, her first real film role. She was 19 years old, terrified out of her mind, and quickly learned that Hollywood film sets could be cold, viciously competitive, and emotionally cruel. Directors dismissed her as inexperienced. Established co-stars ignored her completely. Critics barely noticed her minor role. She was just another pretty face in a town overflowing with them. Desperate young actresses who'd do anything for a chance. Amityville 3D came next, a horror sequel absolutely nobody wanted to make or see. The kind of forgettable project you take because you desperately need the paycheck and just hope nobody remembers it exists when your career eventually takes off. Between auditions, she waitressed at restaurants across Los Angeles. She read for dozens of television pilots every single pilot season. Most casting directors said no immediately. The few pilots that said yes usually got canceled before even airing a single episode. This is the part of fame nobody ever sees. The grinding, humiliating, soul-crushing rejection that either breaks you completely or teaches you to survive absolutely anything. It's the part where dreams die quietly in waiting rooms. Meg learned to survive. She had no other choice. Then came Top Gun in 1986, changing everything. She wasn't the lead. She wasn't even close. She was Tom Cruise's girlfriend, a small supporting role in someone else's massively ambitious story, a few romantic scenes to add emotional texture to a movie fundamentally about fighter pilots and masculine bravado and aerial combat. But the shoot was intensely physical. Fighter jets made her violently motion sick between takes. 14-hour days under blazing sun. The crushing pressure of working opposite the biggest movie star in the entire world. When Top Gun exploded into an unprecedented cultural phenomenon, Meg's life changed overnight. Suddenly she was recognizable on the street. Suddenly casting directors returned her phone calls. Suddenly producers wanted her name attached to their projects. But Hollywood is ruthlessly fickle, and fame is heartbreakingly fragile. Armed and Dangerous flopped hard at the box office. Inner Space underperformed despite strong critical praise. One year, you're the breakout supporting star from the biggest movie of the summer. The next, you're back to auditioning desperately, back to proving yourself all over again, back to wondering if you'll ever work consistently. That volatility planted something permanent deep in her psyche. Fame felt precarious because it absolutely was precarious. Nothing was guaranteed. Everything could vanish tomorrow. Katz's Delicatessen, New York City. The scene that would define her forever. The When Harry Met Sally orgasm scene. Director Rob Reiner wanted it authentic. He kept making her do it again, and again, and again. The diner was packed with background extras, crew members, curious strangers eating lunch who had no idea what they were about to witness. Meg had to simulate an increasingly loud orgasm in front of 100 people, while Billy Crystal sat across from her trying desperately not to break character and ruin the take. She was absolutely mortified. She was terrified. She was brilliant beyond measure. She turned vulnerability into comedy, embarrassment into high art, profound discomfort into one of the most iconic moments in cinematic history. I'll have what she's having. That improvised line, delivered perfectly by Reiner's own mother, Estelle Reiner, became instantly immortal, and Meg Ryan became America's sweetheart overnight, the woman who could make you laugh and cry in the same breath. The woman who felt real, accessible, like someone you could actually know and be friends with. But watch her work closely during this explosive era. She wasn't just playing cute. Joe vs. the Volcano showed genuine range. Quirky, dark, existential, willing to take creative risks that could have damaged her marketability. The Doors let her disappear completely into a small role opposite Val Kilmer's iconic Jim Morrison. She experimented constantly. She pushed boundaries even as Hollywood executives tried desperately to box her into one profitable category: the adorable, neurotic, lovable girl next door who sells tickets. By the mid-90s, that's exactly who she'd become to the watching world. The woman every man wanted to date. The woman every woman wanted to be best friends with. Charming, accessible, emotionally honest, safe, completely unthreatening, absolutely perfect in every possible way. The pedestal was impossibly, dangerously high. And everyone knows what happens to pedestals. They crumble, they collapse, and the fall destroys everything. Sleepless in Seattle in 1993 made her the highest-paid actress in Hollywood, $227 million at the worldwide box office. Her face on every magazine cover globally. The Empire State Building observation deck scene where she actually injured herself during filming but kept going because the shot was too important to stop. She was at the absolute peak of fame, wealth, and massive cultural influence. The world was hers, and she was profoundly miserable. When a man loves a woman, in 1994, required her to inhabit alcoholism and brutal family destruction for months of emotionally draining filming. She had to access rage, desperation, addiction, emotions that lived uncomfortably close to her own complicated family history, her own inherited wounds, the mother who left, the instability she'd spent her entire adult life running from. The paparazzi followed her absolutely everywhere. Grocery stores, restaurants, her young son's elementary school. Privacy became completely impossible. Panic attacks became routine occurrences. Loneliness intensified, paradoxically, even as millions of people globally adored her. She couldn't have a single private moment. Couldn't be anything except the carefully managed image everyone demanded she maintain. The romantic comedy machine kept churning relentlessly. French Kiss, You've Got Mail, City of Angels. Each film made hundreds of millions of dollars. Each one reinforced the golden prison. Stay young forever. Stay charming always. Stay exactly who we fell in love with. Don't age, don't change, don't dare be human. Just keep smiling for the cameras. Keep being perfect. Keep being the fantasy. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, her marriage was slowly, painfully disintegrating. The cracks were spreading. The foundation was crumbling. And nobody watching her smile on magazine covers had any idea. Dennis Quaid, her co-star, her husband, her greatest heartbreak. They fell in love young. Two ambitious actors building successful careers together, supporting each other through the Hollywood chaos, creating what looked from the outside like the industry's absolute perfect marriage. Beautiful people, successful careers, adorable son. The complete fairy tale that everyone envied. Behind closed doors, it was an absolute nightmare. Dennis struggled with severe cocaine addiction. The relapses came in devastating waves. Meg would find evidence, confront him emotionally, believe his tearful promises to get clean, watch him fall again. The pattern repeated for years. Rehab, recovery, relapse, over and over in endless cycles. Then came the serial infidelities. Multiple affairs with different women, women on film sets, women in hotels, women whose names she didn't even know. The humiliation of knowing and pretending desperately not to know, of keeping his secrets to protect his career, their public image, their son's sense of normalcy and stability. Their son Jack arrived in 1992 after 28 hours of brutal labor. Meg descended into severe postpartum depression she hid from absolutely everyone. The facade held perfectly for the cameras. Smiling magazine covers, glamorous award show appearances, happy family photos for People magazine spreads. Inside, she was drowning completely. A smashed vase during one explosive screaming argument, long, cold silences that lasted days, the slow, grinding erosion of trust and love and any hope for the future. For nearly a decade, Meg Ryan, the beloved public image, thrived, while Meg Ryan, the actual person, fractured into smaller pieces. The woman the world adored didn't exist. She was a performance, a construction, a lie. Australia, 2000. Proof of life. Russell Crowe was intense, talented, emotionally dangerous, raw in a way Dennis had never been. The chemistry on set was immediately undeniable. What started as professional respect became deep emotional intimacy, became something more, something neither of them could control or resist. Meg was still technically married, The affair was supposed to be secret, private, nobody's business. But paparazzi don't miss anything ever. Photos surfaced. Rumors exploded across tabloids. Within weeks, Meg Ryan went from America's sweetheart to Hollywood's homewrecker. Never mind that her marriage had been emotionally dead for years. Never mind Dennis's own numerous infidelities, his addiction, his betrayals. The narrative was simple and brutally unfair. She had destroyed her perfect family for a fling with a bad boy. She was the villain in this story. Hollywood turned on her overnight with shocking speed. Studios pulled offers immediately. Projects evaporated. The same executives who'd built empires on her smile now whispered about her damaged brand. Films she'd been attached to went to younger actresses. Magazine covers disappeared. The adoration turned instantly to harsh judgment. The industry that had loved her for being safe, wholesome, and predictable couldn't forgive her for being messy, complicated, and painfully human. She'd broken the contract. She'd shattered the illusion. And Hollywood doesn't forgive that. Therapy sessions multiplied. She retreated to Malibu, away from cameras and endless questions. The scandal wasn't the cause of her breakdown. It was the final crack in a foundation that had been crumbling since her mother drove away when she was 15. She stepped away from the machine that had simultaneously created her and destroyed her. Section 9. The decline, rejection, risk, and disappearance. The films that followed were symptoms, not causes. Kate and Leopold in 2001 did decent business but felt like a nostalgic relic from another era. Against the Ropes flopped spectacularly at the box office. In The Cut, her ambitious attempt at dark, sexual, serious drama confused audiences who only wanted the romantic comedy version of her. They didn't want complexity or darkness. They wanted Sally Albright forever. The Women in 2008 became a critical punchline. Critics savaged it mercilessly. Audiences ignored it completely. But these failures weren't about talent or ability. They were about exhaustion, emotional depletion. A woman who'd spent 30 years performing constantly and finally couldn't anymore. Meg disappeared from Hollywood and devoted herself completely to motherhood. She raised Jack away from cameras. She adopted Daisy from China in 2006 as a single mother, building a quiet, private life in New York, far from the Hollywood machinery. She chose peace over fame. She chose her children over her career. She chose herself, finally. The tabloids didn't forget about her. They just shifted focus from her career to her face. Photos surfaced showing Meg with what looked like botched plastic surgery. Her face appeared swollen, unnatural, frozen in odd ways. The media went absolutely insane. What happened to Meg Ryan became a sustained national conversation, endless speculation about procedures and doctors and what went wrong. She stayed completely silent, but the cruel speculation never stopped. It intensified. Behind the scenes, Meg was rebuilding herself completely from scratch. She trained intensively at Sundance, learned directing from masters, found purpose and creative control behind the camera rather than in front of it. Her 2015 directorial debut, Ithaca, showed genuine maturity, artistic vision, creative command. She was no longer just the face. She was the storyteller with complete control. Then came John Mellencamp. Their relationship was passionate, turbulent, emotionally exhausting from the start. They'd break up dramatically and reconcile tearfully, push each other away, and pull back together in endless, painful cycles. For 3 years, they repeated the destructive pattern until finally, permanently separating in 2019. More heartbreak, more proof that love stayed impossibly complicated, more confirmation that fairy tales don't exist in real life. But something fundamental had shifted deep inside Meg. She was done apologizing, done hiding, done letting others define her worth or dictate her choices. She'd survived too much to care what anyone thought anymore. In 2023, she returned to acting with What Happens Later, a small, intimate film she also directed and produced herself. A tentative step back into the public eye, but entirely on her own terms. No studio demands, no image to protect, just her, telling a story she genuinely wanted to tell. She wasn't asking permission anymore from anyone. That era was over, which brings us back to the 2025 Oscars moment. Within hours of her appearance, plastic surgeons had posted detailed lists analyzing everything. Cheek fillers, eyelid surgery, possible facelift, lip injections, Botox in multiple areas. They diagnosed her face like a medical specimen, debated procedures she may or may not have had, judged results publicly. The cruelty was absolutely breathtaking, the dehumanization complete. But here's what nobody wanted to admit. Hollywood created this impossible situation. The industry that tells actresses they're too old at 40, that erases women who age naturally from leading roles, that makes cosmetic surgery practically mandatory for survival, that punishes aging, but also punishes obvious attempts to fight aging. There's no winning, just different ways to lose. Meg finally spoke about it publicly in interviews following the Oscars, admitted to body dysmorphia, described years of internalized pressure, of feeling inadequate, of believing her entire value depended on her appearance, her youth, her ability to remain frozen at 32 forever. She'd been fighting an unwinnable war against time itself. The double take everyone had at the Oscars wasn't really about her face. It was about confronting what we collectively do to women in the spotlight. How we demand they stay frozen in time. How we punish them whether they age naturally or fight aging with procedures. How we devour them and then act shocked when they break. Meg's transformation is Hollywood's confession. Her face tells the story of an industry built on impossible standards. Today, Meg Ryan is 63 years old. She runs her own production company with full creative control. She's developing a Netflix series. She's choosing projects that genuinely interest her rather than ones designed to recapture past glory or recreate who she was 3 decades ago. She's stopped apologizing for aging, stopped explaining herself to people who were never going to understand anyway, stopped performing for approval from an industry that used her up and threw her away. The woman who once needed to be perfect has found something infinitely better: authenticity. The girl who learned at 15 that love is conditional has built a life entirely on her own terms. The actress who Hollywood both worshipped and destroyed is now the storyteller, the decision-maker, the one in complete control. Her legacy isn't just the romantic comedies, though they're part of it. It's not the scandals or the surgeries or the endless tabloid headlines that reduced her to gossip. It's survival, it's resilience, it's choosing truth over image, substance over appearance, reality over the fairy tale. It's proving that women can rebuild themselves after being broken. The double take at the 2025 Oscars wasn't about Meg Ryan's face. It was about recognizing how far she's traveled from that 15-year-old watching her mother drive away, how much she's endured, how many times she's been broken and rebuilt, not by Hollywood's standards, but by her own, how she survived when the industry tried to destroy